Hi.
Hi, all.
Hi, everyone. So we're going to have a panel discussion, and the topic is packaging for a circular economy. So Michael's already talked about this quite a fair amount, and Chris gave some very good examples. So why don't we dive straight in, and let's maybe each of you give your perspectives on how cosmetic firms can close their packaging material loops. I know we've discussed this quite a bit, but we'll start the discussion with that. And what I'd like is the delegates, the audience, can give some additional questions through the Q&A box and give some comments there. And so who would like to start? I think it's been covered quite a lot by Chris and Michael. So maybe Robert or Teresa, you would like to give your thoughts first. Okay, the sound is not coming out, Teresa. If you could repeat that. Okay, maybe we'll start with Robert.
What was the question again?
Okay, we're talking about how to close packaging loops. We had some very good examples in this session already. What's your views on what's the way forward to make the transition to a circular economy? What should be done in terms of packaging?
I really like refillable packaging because it extends the life, stops one-time use. It's very easy for brands to market it not only in brick and mortar stores, but it's really well built for e-commerce and subscription type services, as well as in combination with, say, somebody like Terracycle, where the combination of refillable and that service put together, it would be something really, it would really be a game changer that we don't see right now.
Okay, so you like to see more refillable packaging?
Refillable and multifunctionalism. For me, those two things really drive. Besides changing the material to a more sustainable option, I think we need to look beyond that. How do we extend the life? How do we make it easier for the consumer, intuitive for the consumer, as well as a lot of people. To give you an example, how many people would recycle if they didn't have that blue bin or that green trash can? You know, that's what we need to do, is help them with that by providing them a package that's able to be easily recycled, along with a service as that.
Okay, that's good. Teresa, let's see if we can get some sound. Some comments there, Teresa? Okay, the sound isn't so great. Maybe we'll come to Michael. Michael, we've heard quite a lot about the Loop platform already and ocean plastic, but what do you think is going to be the way forward here?
Well, look, I think there is no one single solution. And I think the most important thing is to shift our mindset to start including sustainable and circular concepts in the design process when we're thinking about new products and packaging. But the reality is that there's a lot of permutations for that. It's going to look different. And so the most important thing is to take whatever steps are possible on that journey, right? And so when at Terracycle, as we're working with partners, we see short, medium, and long-term solutions. Loop, we think, is the paradigm shift that the world needs to move to a durable model, but we know that it's also the long-term solution, and that getting user adoption in companies and changing the model is going to take a long time. In the meantime, it's important to be making things more recyclable, or to be finding ways to solve the day-to-day problems now. And so we look at it really as a continuum, right? There's no one right answer. It's a matter of moving as far down that continuum as possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So here's a test. Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's a bit blurred. I can hear you.
Okay. Changing out some headsets. So sorry about that. And sorry I missed everyone else's explanations. It would have been interesting to hear that. The biggest input I wanted to give on circular economy is, we hear a lot about circular economy. It's kind of one of the trendy words right now. But we need to make sure that we remember that a real circular economy is much more than simply just traditional recycling. It's not just a rebranding of recycling. It's a way of looking more holistically at all of our resources on this planet, and how do they all integrate together, and how do they all flow together, and how do we as humans make sure that everything we're doing works into natural systems as well. So that's my biggest input on it, is that this isn't just a rebranding of recycling. And anyone who thinks that it is just really doesn't understand the depth of sustainability and how to get there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Chris, do you want to give your views there?
Yeah, I mean, I concur with a lot of what others have said, particularly Michael's point. So I think, in a sense, our kind of sort of defaulted to downstream end of life solutions on all of this stuff, and not paddled very much of circularity upstream. And I would, I would just build on what others have said. I absolutely don't think there's a silver bullet, one single strategy that's going to solve any of this. I think there are multiple strategies. But I think one of the pieces that I'm missing is around, I guess the packaging waste that could be avoided or designed out. And in a sense, I almost want us, as rather than the final step that we take, it's almost to be the first step that we take. And in a sense, the most, cost efficient and cheapest, the most circular material you can use is probably the material that you don't use. Do I think that all brands and businesses have done their absolute utmost to design out waste and over packaging? I absolutely think not. I think they get to that quite late. If I look at it, I don't know whether Lush presented today. I saw them on, but they've got now nearly 50% of their portfolios naked, without any packaging at all. And I don't think that's going to work universally. It's not going to work for all products and all formats, but I would like to see a lot more of this kind of upstream thinking and trying to design out waste before it's even created, thrown into the mix. And I don't really see an awful lot of that in today's debate.
Yeah, a very good point. That was leading to my second question. And I was actually going to give an example of Lush, something which we never talked about in the preceding seminars. We actually did have Lush to speak, but they had to pull out a few weeks before, and we wanted them to speak about going naked, about not having packaging at all. And maybe, the question here is, maybe we need to think about this a little bit more, because there can be quite a lot of innovation. We had Ethique earlier, and we're seeing some innovation like shampoo bars. And there's an American company called Pacific Shaving Company. They've got shaving foam with a dissolvable packaging. It's like made from bioplastic, and it dissolves underwater. So, what do you think is going to be the way forward? Do we really need packaging? Maybe innovation is going to be the answer, that we can get rid of packaging.
Yeah, and I would say that there's no way that we're going to feasibly get rid of all packaging. I mean, there's just packaging serves a purpose. So it protects, it contains. So for hygienic reasons and product protection reasons, there's no way to completely get rid of all packaging in all products. There's definitely products and I would say the majority of products we could probably reduce packaging on. In cosmetics, so much is visual that sometimes it's difficult for them to reduce packaging simply because it may not be as appealing on the shelf. And, a lot of it is a very impulsive buy. When you go, cosmetics, a lot of it is, okay, well, what looks good, or, oh, hey, I heard about this one. But when you get there and you're looking at the shelf, it's, kind of what looks appealing to you and what are the main messages on it that quite often sell the product or don't. And as you get rid of packaging, you lose those opportunities. So from a commercial sense, it's difficult for them to reduce a lot of the packaging. Doesn't mean that it can't be done. If we spent as much money on trying to figure out how to recycle that packaging, if we spent that time and money trying to figure out how to design it right to begin with, we might be a lot further than we are. But I think a lot of times we overlook just some of the things that are realities. There's aspirational of let's get rid of all packaging, but we really can't get there. We definitely reduce and redesign.
Okay, who else would like to give their views on that?
To me, go ahead. Do you want to go?
No, go ahead, Robert. Please do.
The thought of actually getting rid of packaging to me is giving up, in all honesty, because it's a necessity. I mean, that to me, that's just a false, misleading statement. What I wish and what I love to see, which will actually bring us farther ahead, I believe, is everybody agreeing on what is sustainable and how does that affect us. Because I get questioned all the time, is glass better than plastic? Plastic better than biopolymer? Biopolymer better than plastic? And this is a general statement. In general, paper, glass, plastic, and biopolymers, they're all equally bad in my personal opinion. None of them actually stand out because I believe it was either Michael or Chris stating going upstream instead of downstream. If you actually go downstream a little bit, look back, the way glass is manufactured is very bad. So what we're doing with paper in other countries and not sustainably sourcing from sustainable forests. Plastic is just overused. And glass, it has its problems as well. Biopolymer, understanding the truth about them. I don't know how many times I've actually heard the marketing message, but then when you read the little piece of paper with all the fine print, it's not so recyclable. There are some that are extremely recyclable, and I applaud them. But there's a lot of them out there. So getting a common message, a common education, and understanding amongst, at least I'd say I'd be happy with just the average person. It's so different, even from one brand to another, what they believe and don't believe is sustainable.
Okay.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Robert in that it would be enormously helpful for there to be a base level of understanding and clarity around the principles. But I also think that it's, to a certain extent, there's a game of whack-a-mole and that there is no perfect solution. Reducing carbon footprint, which led to a lot of lightweighting trends, people trying to reduce the carbon footprint of packaging, led to the proliferation of highly non-recyclable packaging because it's complex. And so there's no single silver bullet solution. The most important thing is to, wherever possible, keep the practical recyclability or reusability of a system or product in mind, and then use that as the core of a design process for a new product or package. And that way we move down the continuum towards a more circular model, noting that there's, as Robert was mentioning, there's a lot of confusion around compostability and recyclability. And, I think most people would be stunned to know that most of what goes into a recycling bin doesn't end up getting recycled. It's primarily just clear, rigid PET that gets recycled because that's what's profitable for recyclers to process, right? So there's some real fundamental kind of cracks in the system that we are all relying on as a public and as manufacturers. And so I think that the more we keep in mind that continuum and that there's not a single perfect solution, the better we're able to have the conversation.
Chris, do you want to add anything there?
Do you want me to add in? I do have, if that's okay. Could we get rid of packaging? Do we want to get rid of packaging? I would say probably absolutely not. And I don't say that as a defensive. I mean, I've seen that question posed to the packaging industry, quite often, and they get really defensive about it. Kind of, oh, my livelihood is at threat here, by the planet. But I guess what we're looking for here is a balanced argument. And I heard a great stat from one of the big European waste companies 6 months ago or a year ago in a presentation, and he basically said, look, kind of in a sense, already packaging is serving, is doing eco design, particularly with food and beverages, right? Particularly food. So packaging of food already provides a really important, environmental function of preserving it for longer and reducing, losses in the supply chain and all that sort of stuff. And that doesn't mean packaging has got a get out of jail card to take no responsibility for its own impacts. And actually, they've done calculations in that company called Veolia, and they were suggesting that if we didn't have packaging, if we'd not had plastic packaging since 1950, we'd have a 4-degree warmed world already, right? And in a sense, that sort of tells you what we need to know here, which is that this does have, packaging does have a really important role to play, not only in whatever selling things and preserving things and shipping things around, but actually in protecting the planet. And I guess what we don't want to do is use that as an excuse get out of jail card for the packaging industry and packaging designers like me to not take responsibility for particularly things like the end of life and excessive packaging and waste packaging and poor sourcing of packaging. And I think we kind of need a more nuanced debate about this.
Okay, we have a question from the Q&A box. So, in your opinion, what do you believe is the most sustainable plastic option when you take into consideration raw material extraction, transportation efforts, and recyclability? So, who would like to have a go at that one?
Well, I guess I'll jump in. I would say you can't just hands down say one plastic material is hands down always better than another material. And that's one of the difficult things when you start looking at sustainability, as was mentioned a little bit ago. I think by Robert, that there's so many different types of materials and which is more sustainable. Even in just looking at plastics themselves, one may have less impact in making it, but the recyclability may not be there. You may have recyclability, but it may have higher energy use. Another one might have higher water use. So it really depends on what factors are important to you, but also a lot of it coming down to the individual product. If you need good vapor barriers, if you need oxygen barriers, then some materials just aren't going to work well for you, no matter how sustainable they are to produce. So it's a complex question. I don't know that you could answer just hands down and say, PET is always better because it's recyclable. Because it's just not.
So what about you, Robert? You may have missed the question. Can I repeat it?
What was the question?
The question is in the Q&A box. What do you believe is the most sustainable plastic option when you take into consideration raw material extraction, transportation efforts, and recyclability?
As of today, I have very limited choice. Basically, PET, PP, polyethylene, those are kind of the best ones right now because they are recycled in general. But that leads me to state, all of us are talking about it. All of us are working in this particular industry and everything else. But what we can't forget, we need to implore our governments and local municipalities as well to support us in this effort. Otherwise, there's only so much innovation in the world that can create new designs, new plastic that need help recycling what we've got as well from our government. You just look at the difference between Europe and here. Europe, I mean, they haven't got it right either, but they've got their act way farther together than we do. So, how many people here have used the recycle bin to put trash in instead? You know, everybody's done it. They've stuck the trash in there because they know the dudes that come by to pick it up will pick it up anyway. It's because we don't have laws that are strict enough as well. So just choosing what material is the best in plastics, it's kind of hard to say, but I would say it would be one of the recycled ones that are currently recycled, which is a very short list.
Okay.
Would that only be though if you're looking at recyclability as a critical factor, right? So if you simply look at an entire life cycle span, including extraction and the ultimate impacts of disposal, you think it's even more complex, I would think.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I go and make a jar and stick a bunch of optical brightener in it to make it look prettier because it's PCR. It's not going to get recycled. So, I mean, there's limits as to what you do and how you do it. It's not just which material.
right. We're going to have to think of closing this session. So I realize we're started a bit late. I'm going to end with a final question, final thoughts to all of you. And I'm going to keep it a very broad question. What would you like to see from the personal care industry in terms of green packaging or sustainable packaging? And if we can just give some brief answer, what would you like to see in the coming years in this area of packaging from the personal care industry? So who would like to go first? Maybe Chris?
Yeah, you want me to be quick? I guess I would like to see the same level of innovation and design. I've just mentioned design for recyclability activity as you see in a category like beverages. And I'm not saying holding beverages up as doing anywhere near enough because they're probably not. But I feel that as a category, kind of they are, I mean, a decade ahead. And and as I say, it's not that they've cracked this or they're doing perfect. But if I look around where the advanced practice is on sustainable packaging, I don't think it's in cosmetics and beauty, and arguably it should be. It's one of those sort of categories that seems to have fallen invisibly under the radar. So I'd like to see more. I guess progress faster.
Okay, Michael.
I echo similar sentiments to Chris, in that I think that I would love to see continued focus on innovation around circular and sustainable development for packaging and products in whatever way that works, whether that is integrating, finding ways to integrate PCR, or in creating simpler, easier to recycle products or package-free options. I think there's, it's such a diverse category with such a diverse array of products that there's room for innovation on a number of fronts. And I think that's the key thing, is to stay focused on moving the ball forward in whatever capacity is possible.
Robert.
I agree with both the guys, but I still push quite heavily refillables, because I really think that especially if you design it well, you design it from the ground up, where you start putting in maximum allowances of PCR, you make it easy to disassemble, the customer understands it, all of those kinds of things. I really like that because it feeds so many different aspects of sustainability, at least from what I see for the beauty market. And refillables have been around for a long time. And I think the brands have struggled a little bit with the perception of refillable and how to market it. But if you just go to your grocery store, refillable's been around a long time. Windex, 409, they did it 10 years ago. And nobody balked. Nobody thought it was weird. They thought it was awesome. they get a discounted larger amount in a package that they can refill the one they already got. I think that's great because it stops the one and done, which is the biggest problem with the packaging industry for beauty. Is they use it once, it's either a 3-day, 10-day, 15-day, or 30-day regime, and boom, it's gone. Buy another one, brand new one, whole thing. You know, I really believe that's the way to go.
Okay, Teresa?
Well, I would say if I had one want or wish, it would really be for the cosmetic companies to, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, but to step back from simply following trends or whatever's popular when it comes to their sustainability, and actually looking at the science, looking at the data, looking at LCAs, to implement solutions that really have an effect, not just something that has a marketing value to it. You know, with that, designing their products, knowing where they're going to be discarded. You know, if it's going to be discarded in the landfill, you can, you know, make it as compostable as you want. It does it absolutely no good. You know, looking at things from a practical perspective, integrating that data, integrating consumer behavior so that we can achieve the results that we're looking for, and we're not, you know, just running in circles like we've been doing for the past 40 years.
Okay, I'm going to close up this session, and I'm going to spend a minute to give some closing remarks, but there's a couple of notices. For those of you who have registered for the workshop, it's going to start 9:30 a.m. EDT time tomorrow. It's a half-a-day workshop on metrics. We hosted this virtually, so please complete the evaluation form. If you go to the lobby in the chat, there's a link there. So anyway, my closing remarks for the 2 days. Circular economy was the focus of this 12th North American edition. Yesterday, we saw examples of how this can be put into practice. We had a presentation from MBBC about the cradle design approach, how nutrients can enter infinite cycles. We also had examples of upcycling, how Remnatics is using wood chips to make a sustainable ingredient, C16 Biosciences using side streams to make an alternative to palm oil. And today we discussed approaches to reduce packaging impact. And we had some great examples from the speakers here, like the Lush platform, ocean plastic, and also the role of certification, like ISPC for biopolymers. So also, what's the role of consumers? How can we change consumer behavior so they buy more sustainable products and are more responsible consumers in the way that they use the products and dispose of them? Lastly, what are the long-term implications of COVID-19? It's already changing the way we greet, the way we shop, and the way we work. Also, the way that we learn and connect, like at this summit. And to me, the crisis has highlighted the need to change. The current system or way of business is no longer valid. The question is, can we learn from the crisis and become a greener society? And maybe we can implement what we've learned over the last few days, whether it's in terms of formulations or packaging, to make a more sustainable cosmetics industry. So with that, I'd like to close the summit for today, and hope to see you again in New York or one of our physical events. And so thank you all panelists, and thank you for the audience for staying behind. Hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.